Computer. Well, hello, everyone. I am so excited for this conversation. My friend Caron and I have actually been friends for about 5+ years, and we met in Washington State, both military spouses, and we're both into health and wellness and just figuring out other ways to view our health and understand our health and our bodies and our mind and our spirit. So I'm going to just let her take over from here so she can introduce herself and get started.
All right. Hello. I'm actually very excited. I will first start by saying, Candace, I appreciate your support in my passions and encouraging me along the way, because I think we all tend to struggle with some, confidence and, taking those leaps. And so I appreciate you reaching out and asking me to do this, because it really, it combines two loves for me. So I discovered human design probably during, COVID. Well, first of all, let me say, my name is Caron. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited. I am Caron. I know it looks like Caron, but it's Caron. And I am a mom of 3, 42, fastly approaching 43. And so this has been stuff that I've been on this journey for a long time. Some back history. I grew up as a dancer, so movement, health, fitness, dance is a form of that, all has been a huge piece of my life for as long as I can remember. It's just shifted how that's looked over the years. So I discovered human design, I guess it was during COVID that I really so maybe like 2020.
You know what's funny is I'm pretty sure that I sent you something about it. I feel like somehow I sent you something and then later on you started getting into it, probably a year later. I was like, oh, here's, because I know back when I was doing coaching in 4 years ago, I was like, hey, this human design thing's pretty interesting. And then it's just interesting to see how it came into your life about a year later.
I remember the moment that I actually went down the spiral, because PETA Kelly is someone that I found. I may have been following her prior to COVID. I feel like COVID is for all of us, it's okay, was it pre or post COVID or during or whatever? And I remember hearing her mention it a couple times, and it was that second time or something, or I don't know, it may have been more, but in my mind, it was she made a comment about what she was. She's a manifester. And I was like, all right, I need to, what is this? So I immediately, in my true profile 5-1 way, at the time didn't understand that that's why, but I went down the spiral and immediately pulled my own chart, did my own research, was full on, this is so interesting. Ended up getting a reading, and then fast forward, ended up taking a course to do readings. And here I am. It ebb and flows, because being a mama and all that entails, and a military spouse, life can be unpredictable. Hence the banner in the background. We had a birthday. My youngest is now double digits, so it's crazy. But yeah, so I've kind of ebb and flowed out of it. But whenever it pops up, and whenever and I'm sure you will attest to this because you've told me many times, but when I talk about it, it's just something that I get, in true human design fashion, I get so lit up about it. And it's something that excites me, and I could talk endlessly about it. So with that said, I'm going to just I think my plan is just to give a general oversight of how human design kind of can blend into like health and fitness. So what it looks like for eating, like digestion, eating, and what it looks like for movement, because I know this group, we all like to do that. So, so first of all, just quickly, just because I will be throwing out, there will be a lot of terms I throw out. Some of you may be aware of what it is. Some of you may not. If there's questions, we can ask at the end. But just a general quick oversight. There are 5 different types, energy types. We have your generator, your manifesting generator, your manifestors, your projectors, and your reflectors. So your generators are those life force people. They're here just to lift the energy of the world. They kind of are the ones that are like they're building, they have the energy, they're kind of the go-getters, so to say. And then you have your manifestors that are kind of the fire starters. They're here to get things started for others. They come up with the ideas and they work in surges. So if you know a manifestor, which I referenced Peta Kelly earlier, who she is, she will be on. I will be getting Peta in my feed like daily. And then all of a sudden she disappears because she's done her surge and she pulls away. And then she'll come back. And she kind of like, you can tell when she starts to come back, I'm starting to hear rumblings from her because I follow her on different things. And she'll then come back. So it's fun to see that in action. Our manifesting generators, which is what I am, we are like multi-passionate. We are here to kind of do things like in different ways, and do many things. We're multi-passionate. We're not necessarily meant to go down like one specific path and niche down. Then we have our projectors. They're like the seers. So they're here, they see a specific niche in a whole new way. They can just, they kind of guide, and they can see like more effective ways on how to do things. So guide and tweak kind of is what they can do. And then finally, we have our reflectors, and they're the shapeshifters. So they're here to show others who we truly are. Literally just to like a mirror almost, because reflectors are, their chart is completely white. They have no defined definition in their chart. And so based on that, they really are a reflection because they're pulling from the individual that they're dealing with, or individuals. So just that as a general oversight, just because I'm going to use those terms here when I speak in general about just movement and stuff like that. Also, I don't know that I said this before, but just to give a general sense of what human design is, it's kind of like, it's like a science and art kind of combined. And it's basically created from, it's like a combination of ancient wisdom, excuse me, and modern sciences. So it takes the I Ching, astrology, the Kabbalic tree of life, the chakra system, and quantum physics, and it blends them all together. And that's how we get that chart, which is called your body graph. And it is unique down to the individual, because it's based on your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location. So very rare that 2 people would ever have the same chart unless you are literally born down in the same hospital at the same exact time. It's kind of rare. So moving back to, let's see. So I'll do working out and then like movement for design, each of the types, and then we'll go into all the food and digestion part. So as far as movement goes for each of us, our generators and our manifesting generators have that sacral energy. We have that energy just naturally in us. And so physical movement is really important to us because it helps to prevent tension buildup in us. So I know a fellow generator, and I think even you're a generator, Candace, and I think you can attest to this, that like the days where we don't move our body are, we can feel that. We can feel like movement, like they say movement keeps, you know, like people will say, oh, it keeps me sane. It's like, yeah, it's and it's like, honestly, I think I have definitely found when I move, I generally love moving my body every day. And I think it really, they say like it helps to make us feel just generally happier in life. And you can ask my family, they will agree. When mom doesn't work out, I may not be as nice. um but keeping in mind too that like it's not just movement, it's movement that we enjoy. So if you know, if you're doing movement that you enjoy, your vibe is going to be higher too. So like generally we want to make sure we're having fun with it. So it can look different to every generator and manifesting generator. It does not have to be a one size fits all. It's what makes sense for you, and it's about moving that tension, you know, to, or moving to prevent the tension, because it's not like we always have that in us, but it's just to keep us at that level. Manifestors, as I kind of mentioned before, they like work in surges. So their workouts should look like that as well. Like sometimes they may want high intensity, they may need that high intensity, and other days a simple walk may just be what they need. It's important that they don't fix themselves to a schedule, because when they do that, that's when like they may not be honoring those surges, because you really need to like tap into that. And when, you know, if you're on that high, go after the high intensity. If you're not, just simply walk, and that is going to give your body exactly what it needs, just like that high intensity at that high level. The two are serving the same purpose.
Do you think that it's related in the surge, like the high intensity, or do you feel like people just need to pay attention intuitively and know like, hey, maybe I'm that type of person that needs the higher intensity when I'm higher, or maybe I need the lower to keep me, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, I do. And I think when it comes, as far as when it comes to manifestors, like obviously I'm not a manifestor, I can't speak personally, but like when it comes to manifestors, it really is on that surge. So
okay.
like they may go months where they're like, I am just in that surge, because their surges can be months, it could be a year, it could be weeks, days, like it, the surges come and go. And so I think it's really just about honoring where they are in that, and
Right.
that tapping into that.
That's just so interesting.
So
Anyways.
it is. So as far as projectors go, they're meant to like operate at 80% all the time. Like they never want to go too hard. They want to be able to stop and smell the roses and like take things in. They never want to be overdoing it too much. So that's kind of where they're at. So finding something that they are giving enough to be moving, but not overexerting themselves is important for them.
And do you think that that helps with that guilt feeling that people can have whenever they're not, you know, like everyone else with their, which this in general should help promote that. But
Yeah.
like, I think especially for people that are, you know, in that category, maybe they tend to have a little bit more sadness whenever they're not doing the things like they see other
Yeah,
people doing, but that's just their nature, like their nature. And so honor
absolutely.
the season that they're in.
Absolutely. And I think for me, when I found human design, it actually helped me be okay with how I operate, because it was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is how I'm designed to like live, just in general. It's how I'm designed. And it's okay. Like it just reiterates even more that like one size does not fit all. And that it really, like everybody is so unique and so different.
Mhm.
And it's so individually based.
Yeah.
So I think this is a prime example of just like taking a step back and being like, okay, that's great that that person's doing, but I don't know what their design may be, or I don't know what their goal may be.
Right. Right. Well, you can speak to, you told me yesterday the analogy, if you want to, it was like the German Shepherd.
The German Shepherd.
Yeah, I'll let you say it because you'll say it much better, but
I heard this and I forget where I heard it. It might have been like a TikTok or something, but it stuck. So like we're all bodies, or women, let's say we're all women, because I think majority, if everyone, is women in the group. So we're all women, so naturally we compare ourselves because that's how we've been ingrained to do. Well, you take dogs, they're all dogs, right? You have a German Shepherd and a Chihuahua. You can never make that German Shepherd work out enough, like starve them enough to look like the Chihuahua. And the flip side, you could never feed the Chihuahua enough and work the Chihuahua out enough to look like the German Shepherd. They are just uniquely different dogs.
right. Right.
Just like I am a different woman than you are a different woman.
Exactly.
And there's so much that goes beyond just like something like human design. It's genetics. It's like, you know, so much that it's so hard to compare.
Yeah.
It's so hard to compare. And that's why I love this, because there's the general, like I'm giving that general oversight, but then you can go so deeper into your own personal chart and gain even more and more detail. But just something as simple as starting at that, like starting with your type, your energy type, leaning into your authority, which I know I haven't touched upon, that's a whole other thing, but like, and just taking small bits, and then you kind of stack them and you kind of see how they fit for you.
Right.
And apply it to you and how it works for you.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And I'm sorry to like sidetrack,
No.
but I was like, no, I think this is valuable because even with the two different types we've gone through so far, they're just vastly different. And I'm sure in like human nature, there is truly only one of us, which human design even further proves like, hey, there's literally only one of you. Maybe the rarity, right? And it's like, because even twins, right? They're born at different times. You can't, well, anyways, I won't go there. But the point is that, you know, even in those two different types, they're so vastly different. And if you connect that with your own chart and your own design, it's going to be in a different level of unique. So I just appreciate you going through this. Okay. I'm going to.
Of course. Okay. So we just, to kind of pull it back in and just kind of refresh. So manifesting generators, we need to move that tension and to make us feel better. We want something that we enjoy to keep the vibe up. Manifestors are going to work in surges, and then the projectors need to stay at that 80%. And then reflectors finally. So they're the ones that like they really cannot, they don't want to pressure themselves to find anything. Like one day they may be like, I want to go try martial arts. So they go and try martial arts. The next day they want nothing to do with that. They might want to go do yoga. And that's what they need to do. Like, I know ClassPass has been a very big thing lately. I've seen it come up a lot on different, just different people I'm following and stuff. And that would be, in this sense, for a reflector, the perfect thing. Because, and for you and I, we're into Beachbody, we do Beachbody workouts, you know, something like that. Whereas like they could go on to the live workouts because there's literally so much to choose from, and they don't have to feel pigeonholed into a program or a type of working out. They can just, it's totally based on how they feel. There's zero pressure behind it. And it goes with how they're feeling each day. Like it just, today I feel like this. Okay, great. You know, so that's kind of how that goes. Also, if you hear me and see me looking down, I have what I want to say, I need to come up with a catchy phrase for it, but like my confidence building and my like, yes, Caron, you're good. You're on the right track. Notes. All right. So that's kind of the movement piece and the general oversense. We'll kind of tap back. I'm going to start with a general overview of eating for the different types. And then we'll go into the more specific, like your digestion, because there's 12 different versions of digestion. And it's specific, again, the deeper you go, the more it gets and the bigger it gets. So eating for our designs. So generators, they need to eat what they crave and indulge a little and move on. Like honor that craving, indulge a little and move on. Manifesting generators, we need to eat any way that appeals, but we do not want, and like any way that appeals and resonates in the moment, but we do not want to restrict portion sizes. We need to be willing to just like have what we want and not be like restrictive. Projectors and reflectors, they thrive when they eat naturally and simple. Like keep it simple as possible. And if it can be natural, that's where they're going to thrive. And your manifestors, they need to feel like they can do whatever they want, whenever they want with food. Like that's kind of how they feel in life with those surges. They do what they want when they want. And so eating should be the same. And you can kind of see that's kind of like the manifesting generators, we can eat any way we want because we're multi-passionate. We do whatever we want. Generators eat what you crave because they're the builders and they are the life force and they need that passion and that desire to keep going. And then you've got your reflectors and your projectors, and they need to keep it simple because they again, that 80% for the projectors, and the reflectors are, just however they feel. And so keeping it simple is helpful. And so you can see the layers and how it makes sense and it all connects. So that's the general oversight. Now you have that, but then it gets even deeper. So if you're looking at your chart, and I said I was going to pull mine and I don't have it in front of me. Actually, I can probably pull it up on my phone. Yeah, I can pull it up on my phone.
That's what I was doing earlier. I was like, oh, I need to grab my chart because I couldn't remember. I was like, was my a generator or manifesting generator? Because I'm a generator.
Yeah.
So
depending on where it's pulled, I personally like myhumandesign.com. I have an account on there as well as I have the app that I pay for. I just love Jenna Zoe. I think she's like awesome. And she really explains stuff in a good way. But this is kind of what a chart, this is mine, what your chart would look like. So when we talk about digestion, this comes just to give you like some perspective. It's coming from that top left arrow, which I don't know if this is reversed or not, on your chart. So if your charts, when you're looking at those 4 arrows at the top, if they're pointing to the left, it's an active arrow. If it's to the right, it's passive. So if you're looking at mine, for example, I only have that top left as an active arrow. The rest are all passive for me. And each of the arrows mean different things. For all intents and purposes, today we're talking about the top left one because that's the digestion. That's where we're talking about today. So just to get some,
I'll just show mine just so you can see the difference in like charts. This one, you can't barely see it, but like the arrows are both going the same direction. But yeah, see how our charts look different.
You only have 2 arrows on there right now.
Well, it's actually on there. It's just really light blue.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I don't see the other 2. I can't see them.
They're both going outwards. So you said that's active.
If they're going to the left,
okay.
If the arrow points to the left, it's active. Okay. If it points to the right, it's passive.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So this I am going to there's 12 of these. So I am going to be looking at my notes a little bit more just because I want to make sure I took some extra notes, and I just want to make sure I'm covering things and giving you guys information. And it's a lot to like all house up in there. So we'll talk about the first two. So we have consecutive appetite, which is going to be your active, and passive. Your passive side is alternating appetite. And they're pretty much what they sound. So consecutive appetite is you need to be fueled. You don't want to go hungry. For consecutive, they say eat one food at a time. Like keep it simple. You can have one thing at a time, and you can have it in large quantities. But just too many ingredients at one time kind of extinguishes that digestive fire. So like when you are specific and you're on to one, it really helps to stoke the digestive fire. So really, like, you can eat a lot in one sitting, but just try to focus on like one food at a time. And so keeping that in mind, that thought went out of my head. I'm like, I have something profound to say. And then I'm like, no, Caron, you just read a word and now it's gone. Notes can be helpful and not helpful. But so that consecutive appetite, you just want to make sure you're fueling your body. That's the biggest piece. In trying to keep it simple. And when we talk about digestion, I'm talking about it for this purpose when it comes to food. But I want you to know that digestion is how we digest everything. So when you are eating in alignment of your digestion, it will help you digest information. It's how we digest information that way. So someone that's a consecutive appetite, they may only want to focus on one thing at a time too. When they're going to learn something, like if they have to do a project, make sure you're doing, oh, sorry, did I go away? Oh my God, I told her I was on, I apologize. Am I here? Okay. I'm so sorry.
We're mothers, so that's when they.
Okay, yes. Good. She just texted me. Sorry, forgot. Yep. I told her she had her final today. She's in college, my oldest, and she had a final. And I said, please, she's like, I'll call you tomorrow. And I was like, yep. I was like, well, I have my call at 10. So do not call after your final. And I knew she was going to. So I apologize.
That's all good. All of us are pretty much moms, most of us in the group anyway. Yeah. So or we have nieces, so nephews, we get it.
Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, like if you're, do the one step at a time for a consecutive eater. You don't want to try to be multitasking because it's how we digest everything. So on the flip side, alternating appetite, it's about it. You also want to keep it simple, pure, wholesome ingredients. Your hunger may vary day to day for someone with alternating appetite. So come to food like passively. Do like if something, like do something else while you're eating, and like have flavorful options on your plate. And you can probably handle 2 foods in one sitting. Like you can handle more. You are someone with alternating appetite. You are prone to stomach sensitivities when you're not eating in your design. And so suggestion would be like grazing small amounts at a time. You may prefer one food at a time, but also you can handle more. But just honoring and knowing that like one day, and I think this is like in general, like I think a lot of us, some days we're just more hungry than others, but like for someone with an alternating appetite, really triggering into that and honoring that is huge. So moving on, we have the next 2 that are active versus passive is open versus closed. So someone with open taste, they want to really try all foods and then stick to the ones they like and forget the rest. Like they may like routines. So once they've discovered what they like, those specific foods, stick with it. They do have sensitive systems, so they are an intuitive eater. And so they are, but that again goes to the trying new foods. They're intuitive, so they may want to try something new, but then if they don't like it, they know, and they'll ditch it and they'll forget it. If they do, then it's something that they might want to eat a lot of. They do better when it's natural and local foods. And so, let's see, they may want to be more consistent with their meals, but seeking variety is important, and especially seasonally. They're a great example of someone that's eating seasonally would be good, because they'll know what works and what doesn't. They can be prone to allergies and dietary sensitivities when they're not eating correctly. So similarly, closed taste will have the same thing. They will also be prone to those allergies and dietary sensitivities when they're not eating in alignment, in eating correctly. But closed taste, the difference with closed taste versus open is that closed taste, they know what they like even before they try it. So they're going to know right off, like, I don't like that. They don't even have to try it. They know. It's just like, and they need to trust that. They do like flexibility, so they may try new meals, and once they find one that they prefer, they won't deviate. And by I mean try new meals, so like they may know what they like, but maybe trying a new version of it or meals, and then once they find it, they may stick to it. So again, also that intuitive eater with the sensitive system, because they know they need to trust themselves intuitively. Similarly, natural and local foods are very helpful. Let's see. And like they closed eaters are often good at developing preferences. So like vegetarians, veganism, gluten-free, even down to a brand. They may specifically be brand loyal. That they know this particular brand works better for them than another brand. So those are those two. So moving on, we have hot thirst, which is your active, and cold thirst, which is passive. And you and I know are both hot. And I will say and speak to myself in this, once I discovered this, I have had, personally for me, everyone's going to be different. And I would never say that there's, you have to do something a specific way. But for me, since I've started, I've always been one that has preferred room temperature to hot beverages. I've always just preferred that. Like my water in my water bottle, some people may call it hot. Because I'm always that. I'm not the like cold, give me the ice cold water. That's not me at all. I don't want it. And so I always have some sort of warm beverage or something with me. So typically we want foods that are warmer than body temperature. And it basically comes down to the fact that we need the food to already kind of have been modified, broken down, heated up, whatever, however you want to word that. We want it to be done that way before we consume it, because we're naturally cold. We tend to be colder bodied people. And I can say that short of entering that perimenopausal years, I tend to be on the colder side. So the warmer foods are going to warm us. And we prefer routines, which I would say, yes, that is accurate for me. It's important to fuel before activities, because that's going to help us. Hydration is also for us a huge and very important, and that's the same for cold thirst, but hydration is important for us to function. And again, since I've been really intentional with my water too, and I've been intentional with water for years, but just going back to when I wasn't, like, that definitely makes a difference. And when we talk about hot or warmer foods. They can be cooked, they can be, sometimes room temperature is fine too. It doesn't have to be hot. It's just warmer. Spice, adding spice to something is another good way to bring that heat to it. So just keeping that in mind, we are prone to dehydration when we're not eating correctly. So we need that kind of to transform the food, like I said before it enters our body. But I will say, all this to say, like, if for us in particular, because we are both hot, that doesn't mean that we can't have ice cream and enjoy it, or we can't have a salad. Just pair it with something. So like if we're having a salad because it's a hot afternoon and we really would love a salad, top it with some warm protein that you might like. So if you're a meat eater, add some warm chicken to it. If you're like vegan like myself, I could top it with tofu or tempeh or something. Or pair it with a drink. Like if you're having something cold and you want to pair it with a warm beverage, or just it. And sometimes you're going to make that decision. And I have certainly made that decision where I'm like, okay, I really want this thing, and I'm not in a position to have something warm with it. And I know that maybe I'm just not going to digest it as good. I may have a little bit more bloat or gas or, discomfort. And that's okay, because I've made that conscious decision. So this by no means is this is the way and you have to do it all the time. It's just, if you lean into this, as I have found, as I've leaned more into it, I feel so much better. And I've noticed it in my body. So on the flip side, cold thirst, you can imagine what that is. Cold, preferably the total opposite, cooler than body temperature. Again, whereas hot wants that routine, cold prefers some flexibility. And they don't necessarily need to fuel before activities. But similarly, hydration is equally important for them. Their food, cold, raw foods are great for their digestion, which is an interesting situation because, like, I didn't bring this up with the hot food, but I love Go Macro bars as an example. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Go Macro bars, they're like raw. They're all the things. All the things are on the label. They're food, the FOPs. They're gluten free. They're all the things, vegan. All the good. Looking at the label, you're like, this is great. And I ate them for years, and then I started realizing that every time I had one, I would get really bloated and like just gassy. And I was like, I don't understand what is going on with this. Like, I feel like this is good for me. It's vegan. It's like, there's like the ingredients are all wonderful. And it's something as simple as it's just probably not, it's in its raw form. And I need something to be cooked. I need it to be warm. I need it to be, done in a different way, or pair it with a cup of tea or something, And so it's interesting that raw, we don't necessarily think of raw as cold all the time, because in this sense, the Go Macro bar is not cold, but it's in its raw form. So just as an example there. So there's no need for the cold thirst people to transform anything before they eat it. And like I said, similarly, they are prone to dehydration as well if they're not eating correctly. So you can see that the way I've paired these, you have the active and the passive, and there are similarities, but then there's also polar opposites in each of them as well. So, all right, we have where are we at? We have 6 more. So the next 2 are pretty basic. Some of them are pretty basic. And I mean, all of them, when you just simply hear it, the basics of it, but then there's like, again, you go a little deeper and there's a little bit more details to it. So the next 2 are calm touch, which is your active, and then nervous touch, which is your passive side. So your calm touch, eat in a calm environment. It's as simple as that. You need focus when you eat. No distractions, no interruptions. Like, you need to really be feeling yourself in that moment. because you are sensitive to disruptions and movement. So your body really needs that calm time. You really need that intentional time to sit. Like if you have calm touch, you really need to be someone that is a mindful eater, that really sits with zero distractions, and your meal is your meal. It's a sacred time for you. You are prone to deficiencies and malnutrition if you're not eating correctly. So you may have upset stomachs and bowel issues, and some bowel sensitivities. So on the flip side, a nervous touch is someone that's going to need excitement while they're eating. They may even do good at moving while they eat or talking. They need some sort of stimulus going on while they're the ones that a group brunch in a restaurant that, is a great setting, or watching a show while they eat or something, that's going to be helpful for them. They need that stimulating environment to help with the digestion of their food. And so, like I said, sometimes that means literally moving while they're eating. So like they're the type of people that might do really well with grabbing and going. Like, think about a city. They grab a slice of pizza and they're walking down the street and they're eating while they're walking to their next meeting. They do well with that. Whereas like the calm person is going to be like, no, I need to sit and have my moment. But similarly, same things. Like if they're not eating in their correctly in their design, it's deficiencies. They can be, prone to deficiencies and malnutrition as well, when they're not eating correctly. And similarly as well, when they're not eating in that kind of correctly along those lines, upset stomachs and bowel issues can be the same sensitivities for them. So again, you can see the similarities, but very polar different as well. Our next two are high sound, which is your active, and low sound, which is your passive. So we have high sound is exactly what it sounds like. You want to be in those high noise. You want a lot of noise around you. So again, a TV on, listening to music while you eat, those those restaurants that are high buzzing and loud and there's lots going on, you're thriving in those environments. You need just a lot of information coming at you when you're eating. Complex ingredients are great, flavorful, like lots of flavors, rich, like just richness, like the space can be just like fulfilling and noisy in the sense of like there's a lot going on. Your brain needs that going on. I should say your body really needs it, not necessarily your brain. So let's see. So even asking questions, something like in your mind as you're doing this, like, how is it made? What's the secret ingredient? Where's it from? What's going on in life? Like those type of things while you're eating are great for someone with high sound, because you're just constantly thinking and stuff is coming at you. If a meal is too bland, you'll crave something else. You'll want something else. So for you, if you're high sound, if you're not eating correctly, you're going to be just prone to feeling unwell. You're just going to feel unwell. There's going to be a sense of unwellness. So the flip side, low sound, is again just the flip side. You want to be in a quiet place. You need that peace, the minimal information coming at you, minimal noise, distraction. You're going to want, on the flip side, more simple foods. They can be simple flavors. There can be flavors to it, but just keeping it simple, a more relaxed and soothing environment is really what's going to help the body thrive. It just needs that minimal information running through it. Like, don't really talk while you're eating. Don't have questions coming at you. Just keeping it really simple. Like simple and just minimal. If food is too rich or like there's loud ingredients like flavors and stuff in it, You're going to feel full too fast. And then that leads to not eating correctly. And therefore you will be, like high sound, prone to feeling unwell. That sense of feeling unwell. So, all right. I know this is a lot of information, but we're down to the last two. Okay. So we have direct light and indirect light. And I find these fascinating. So direct light is your active, indirect is passive. And it simply comes down to the simple version of it. Direct light, eating during daylight hours. Indirect, eating at nighttime hours. So someone that is direct light, they really digest and process nutrients best when they are awake. So eating in those daylight hours and stopping at sunset, like really being mindful of the sun is up, I'm eating, the sun is down, I'm done eating. They need to make sure they're taking in enough during those daylight hours so that they can rest well at night, because if they don't, it can cause not restful night's sleep. And it can affect their sleep quality. That is what they're prone to. So like if they're not eating correctly, sleep quality suffers. And eating too late at night is going to keep them up, because their body, it wakes their body up and it wants to digest. So someone that is a direct light person, if they eat in the evening after sunset or whatever, it's almost like their body's like, well, it's daylight, so I need to be, awake and doing stuff, so they may not sleep well. So again, that's where the not sleeping well comes in. On the flip side, the indirect, your body's going to do its best digesting and processing nutrients when it's asleep. So feeding it correctly the night before is what's going to lead you to a vibrant day the next day. So like trying to make sure that your heavy meal is in the evening. Like eating throughout the day may tire you. Obviously you want to, it may make you lethargic, crave naps. You need to obviously fuel your body again, because it comes into your design. So you need to take into consideration that stuff and what you're doing. So, but just eat minimally throughout the day. And like I said, plan that larger meal in that evening hour, because that's where your body's going to get the most out of it. And then it's going to fuel you to get through that next day. So again, but the difference here is that, so for someone with indirect light, they're prone to, when they're not eating correctly, their productivity is going to suffer. And that's simply because they didn't eat that night before to fuel themselves to get through the next day and set themselves up. So that's when the I have a hard time saying lethargy, you know what I'm saying. And like confusion and then lack of motivation is going to come in for them, because they didn't have that big meal to allow their body to get the nutrients and digest overnight to then fuel themselves for the next day. So there's some polar differences there, but I just find those two so fascinating, because someone that, like, we always, and this is a prime example of what we're told, so often there's like the intermittent fasting. I intermittent fasted for years. I don't anymore. And like for someone, we're told all these things, eat between these hours, close the kitchen at this time, blah, blah, blah. But if someone is like, I have to close the kitchen at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever, and there's someone that's indirect light, they may not be functioning well. And for someone that's direct light, that's like, you can't eat till noon, they've already lost all those daylight hours where they could be fueling their body. So it's like, yes, we can take these suggestions into, like, whatever the case may be, take those things, try them on for size, see how they fit within your design, within how your digestion works. Because again, you and I are both hot food. That doesn't mean it looks the same for both of us. And like, you're a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, so there's going to be some differences there. So there it goes deeper. But but just keeping in mind that like all these aren't like, this is the end all be all. It's literally like, this is how you were designed to thrive. Lean into it, see how it feels, tweak it, and just like allow it to kind of make you like feel your best, like lean into it and really listen. So that's kind of the general, there's a lot of information there. But just speaking from my own experience, just to kind of wrap this up and to kind of give it closure, is just like, I really have found, and when I make that conscious effort of like warm things do best for me, I've seen a huge difference. And that's not to say there's times where I go get my Starbucks and I crave the iced drink, but I will tell you, when I drink it, it doesn't feel like, yeah, it's satisfying a craving in that moment, but it's not necessarily making me feel my best as if I had just gone with the hot version. So exploring that and seeing what that is. And if anyone is curious as to what I can't even talk now. Their digestion is, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to look that up for them and let them know. Because I do think it's fascinating. It's something that, you know, all these pieces together, you take all this, you add it to your toolbox, and you continue to create what works best for you, because that's what it comes down to.
Right. Well, and I think because you did, you know, the Enneagram and like got into it, and, you know, then you found human design and you're like, no, this is what makes the most sense. And it's like, and it's not that we can't have combinations of things, but it's like you see the trend. You see the trend in like how your personality is. And it's just interesting how it all functions together.
Well, and I think for me, which you'll laugh at this because you know I'm not like the super sciencey person. Like I am more of the feely, intuitive, go with the flow person. For me, I think human design, it's not based on how you feel in the moment, because yes, the Enneagram, you are one of the numbers, one of the 9 on the Enneagram. But I feel like there is still some, like if you take the test, and again, the test isn't the be all end all to find your Enneagram number, but like you take the test one day, you answer the questions one way, the next day you take it and you could come out with a totally different number because you're feeling differently. Whereas like this takes the human like input out of it and literally is your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location. And based on that and where the stars and the planets are aligned and all the things, that's how, like, that's your unique blueprint.
Yeah. Well, and as you were talking, I was like trying to look at my chart and I was like, oh, there's so much to it, because there literally is so much to it. And
oh yeah, you can go, I mean, if there's other questions, I'm happy to, you know, if there's another time you want me to come back and talk about something else, I'm welcome to.
no, I think, well, and the fact that, like you said at the very beginning, like Caron has been into human design and has so much knowledge behind it. Even if it takes time for any of us in anything that we do, we always have to prepare right ahead of time. And that's why doing specialized, and it's almost like a reading. It's like you're doing a reading.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit more time, and that's where that energy you know, is given in the space of, okay, I'm going to take a look at your chart and we're going to go over. And I think it's great whenever people want to go over their chart to either really want to know the basics or learn the basics and then take which part of it you would like to go more in depth with, because there's to it. You could be on a call for like 10 hours.
If I could be on a call for hours and hours, because there's really so much to it. And again, because every chart is different, it's not, yeah, there's the simplicity of generator, you know, your authority, your type and your authority, that's simple. It's your one of the 5 types, and then your authority is one of, I forget how many authorities there are off the top of my head, but those 2 things alone, there's a lot there. It can be simple, but there can be a lot there too. And then you go into all the centers,
Yeah.
and whether it's open or closed or undefined, that's a huge thing. Um,
Well, I
and
mean,
I have found a lot of interest in that too.
yeah.
So
Well, and I know when you did mine and we just went over, and I would say over even the basics, I think it was like 3 hours, which granted we are
we added some stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, but still, and it was just like, and I still took so many notes, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty cool. So with that being said, like people can reach out to you. I will leave your information, your like Instagram. Is that the best way for people to like reach out to you, or what do you feel?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can do Instagram. I mean, if they're in the groups, they can, like, if they're on Facebook and they're in that group, they can message me on
On
um
Facebook.
Facebook. Um Comment. Sometimes I have, the way I have stuff locked down, like my Instagram is the most open, and I don't necessarily have the human design thing
On there, yeah.
advertised on there. I'll say yet.
Yeah.
I'll say yet, because we're approaching it. So definitely, I don't have notifications on, but I do pop in there multiple times a day. So I will see it and I will respond. So yeah, either one of those is perfectly fine. Like however you can get to me, and we can set something up, because I love having people have those aha moments, and just realize that, for lack of a better thing, and I'm going to say this because this is how I felt,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with me. It's how I was designed.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
it's simple.
It's like when you said that to me, I was like, that makes so much sense because we kind of forget that we are so individual and that what works for one person may not work for another. And then we get ourselves overwhelmed. And that's where depression, anxiety, and all these other lower
Yeah.
emotions come in because they were like, we're trying to be someone we're not. And it's like, but you're so cool and unique. And like, if you do these things, your body is going to feel better naturally, and you're going
Yep.
to be able to see, like, I'm going to start applying some of the things and see how different it is for me. I mean, I already have been, but like take,
Sure.
because I know, like, even with the cold, like hot, I had to switch over to drinking lukewarm water because I wasn't getting my water in. And it's not that I don't I love the cold water, but I also don't love it in the sense that I could sit there and drink the whole thing down. Right? It's such
Yeah.
a like I can chug a gallon of water. Well, not that, but I can chug water versus doing the other. So, well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and stop
Of
recording,
course.
but I think everybody, just give her a round of applause and thank her for her time. So, but
Thank you for asking me.
no, I'm so glad you said yes. I've only been like, Caron has loved this subject so much, and I was like, you really like have a gift. And she's like, yeah, I know a couple. Like, I can't even think about human design and not have my brain explode. So it's just incredible to see it. And so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.